Today we're going to start looking at the human condition, evolution and gender. As mankind, we tend to use our vision more than any other sense. We have 5 senses, but we tend to use vision more than any other sense. We rely on it for information. We rely on that for getting us through life. Animals, on the other hand, do not rely totally on vision. They will rely on scent. They will rely on vibrations in the ground that can tell them a lot of things. But as humans, we rely on vision. Because of that, 1/3 of the human brain is visual processing centers. The design of successful environments is dependent on factors that are influenced by the way we view the world. Because of that, through the ages, humans have developed certain behavioral patterns that have led to the survival of our species. Men were expected to provide and protect the family, and they are considered to be the stronger of the two sexes. Women were expected to nurture and care. They were the ones that foraged for berries and roots and vegetables that the family could eat, cooked them, took care of the children, made sure everybody was healthy. They were the ones that found medicines that could be used. They were the nurture givers. Because of our established gender roles and expectations that we've developed throughout many, many thousands of years, men and women have evolved to experience their environments differently. Because of those differences, many times those experiences are often related to their respective roles in life. The men went out and hunted alone or in pairs, so they prefer being alone. How many times does your dad come home and sit in a restful chair and reads the paper or watches TV, or while your mother is continually working? Woman's work is never done, unfortunately. Now, I was raised in a family that it wasn't necessarily that way. My dad would come in from work, and because mother worked out of the home, he would always come in and say, "Virginia, how can I help you?" Then he would tear in and do whatever she asked him to do, whether it was fold clothes or cook dinner or whatever it was. He always was helpful. I put this cartoon in here because it reminds me of the change in the society that we're facing right now. And that is when women work, they make more money than their husband. And many couples decide that the husband should stay at home, take care of the children while the mother works. I have a situation in my family that this exact thing is happening. So I sometimes wonder how those children are going to feel when they're older. Right now, they don't know any difference. It's just what's happening. But when they get to be older and they understand that mothers are normally the ones that stay at home and dads are normally the ones that go to work, how are they going to feel? And this little cartoon sums it up. The little girl says, "Daddy, since you lost your job and mommy is supporting us, should I give my Father's Day card to her?" It's confusion. And I'm not saying it's wrong. It's not wrong at all. It is what families are choosing to do. But it's not the norm. There's things in our society that are changing because we have more choices. The technology is changing. Everything is changing. I know families right now where the dad doesn't work outside of the home, nor does the mother. They do everything from their own home office. That is different than the man leaving and coming back. And what I'm seeing there is that the men are picking up more of the household duties and they work together on everything. They're engaged as a family, not as this unit going here and this unit going there, and then they meet somewhere in between. It's going to be interesting to see how this evolves over time. Talking about evolution, evolution and gender, and I'm not talking about evolution like Darwin talks about evolution. I'm talking about how things change. Men and women, because of their gender roles, will perceive, interpret, and describe their environments differently. Because the human psyche has evolved more slowly than human technology, Humans continue, to some extent, to behave and regard the environment according to primal instincts. But it definitely has caused us to look at our environments differently. Men will look at environments differently than women do, and that's very important. I want you to remember this one statement from this course. Your product or service is useless if humans do not understand it, if they cannot operate it, or do not want to use it. It's useless. If you do not research well, you do not plan appropriately to bring about the best environments, planned environments for your clients, you're failing them. You're not only failing them, you're failing yourself and you're failing the profession. Please remember this. If the people that you're working with cannot use the environment that you created for them, you've not done your job. Okay, so let's look at the different gender roles and how they've progressed. In ancient times, there were hunter-gatherer societies. The males hunted while the females gathered vegetation that could be eaten. This is called ethic of care theory. Men's primal gender role was to kill animals for food and protect the community. And when they hunted, it was in open plains, open savannas, and they didn't have many things to obscure their sight, and they could see for a long way. They would travel in wide ranges and would spread apart so that they could wait silently for their prey. And they would kill the animals and bring that back home. This developed into them being alone, quiet, and working by themselves. So you can see where it generated from. They went out, they did what they were supposed to do to take care of the family, to bring the food home, and it's trickled down through the centuries. Here's a cave drawing of men going out to hunt. And you can see, it looks like they have bows and arrows. There's only 3 of them. There's not a group. Let's look at the ethic of care theory. Our female ancestors were responsible for reproduction and taking care of others. They took care of the children. They took care of medical needs. They made sure that the home fires were burning. The females tended to focus on sustaining relationships. They talked to one another. They had to communicate with each other in order to get things done. Where the men were out being quiet, waiting for the animal to come so they could kill it. Do you understand how these differences in relationships and the roles started evolving? Thus, the belief that mothers are better at taking care of children than fathers. This is not necessarily true. There are many men that have equal abilities of taking care of children than the women. My dad is one of those. If we got sick, he was the first one to call and say, what do you need? Do you want me to pick up some juice? What do you want tonight for dinner? And he would make sure that he had it and he cooked it for us and he took care of us. In many ways, my dad was much more nurturing than my mother. The women would stay at home in small groups and they would go out and they would forage for vegetation within the forest and or the jungles. Because of the fact that they stayed at home and they were with the children and they were with other women throughout the day, women are more tolerant of people invading their personal space. In other words, if somebody gets close to you as a female, you're not going to push them away, where men are kind of like, don't get too close. Because of children being around their ankles and their legs all the time, in the home or whatever, they're used to it. Men are not. Because of the dense and complex environments, the peripheral and distance views were limited. Therefore, the women would talk to each other to make sure that everybody was okay. It tended to deter potential predators from the campsites. They would make noise so that the noise would keep the animals away. They communicated, they talked. In some instances, they signaled each other. They knew how to signal each other to let them know if there was harm coming without calling out. Females are also very good at multitasking. They were responsible for the childbearing, nurturing, maintaining the cooking fires, providing clothing and health care, and other domestic duties that were shared by the females in the community. Where men were focused on one thing, women were doing several things at one time. The guy says, "Hey, I'm the hunter. You're supposed to be the gatherer." And she says, "He was standing on the stuff I wanted to gather." So she killed it. Women can multitask. They're not relegated to one thing. Men, even today, are not good at multitasking. Where we can handle 2 or 3 things at one time, they cannot. In looking at our gender roles, there's research that supports these theories of environmental behavior patterns. Numerous studies have shown that men consistently claim larger territories than women. They want larger spaces. They want a bigger house. They want bigger rooms. They want bigger spaces. Patterns of behavior have evolved from that open space, open plain that they went out to hunt on. Men prefer greater interpersonal distances than women. And this is why women are better at coping in a high density environment when you have crowding. Men do not like crowding. They don't want people pressing against them. Women are used to it, so they don't necessarily mind it. Women experience more negative moods in relative low spatial density conditions, while the reverse is true for men. Men will tend to avoid situations that promote debate and or discussion. And in this little cartoon, the older gentleman is saying, "No, Timmy, we're not different from the animals. We have a purpose in life." And I want to look at this and go, what purpose? Thank God that we have men that are good fathers, good husbands, and they work and they do it selflessly. It doesn't matter whether it's men or women. Unfortunately, we have both that just don't care. And I will say this, many, many times, those people have been wounded in life. They've been hurt by others. They don't feel like they can succeed. And for me, that is very unfortunate. It's really a type of learned helplessness. And it's sad because they have no vision for their own life. As we continue on with the gender and perception, women are more helpful to others in need in complex settings. Men are more helpful in simple settings. Again, go back to where it started from. Men were out in the open plains. Women were at home with the children and the other people in the community, the other ladies in the community. Women are more apt to sit closer to people who look either happy or sad, where men will tend to move closer to only those who look happy. Both women and men maintain greater distances from people who display fear. If you're sad or happy, that doesn't bother women. But for a man, they're only going to go to the happy person. However, if there's fear shown, they'll stand back. Both genders will stand back. Men require more personal space when ceilings are lower. In other words, when a ceiling is lower, the personal space for a man is going to get bigger. If the ceiling is higher, that personal space is going to get smaller. And personal space is the space that you carry around you, that you're very selective about who gets into that space. Men's personal space will change depending on the height of the ceiling. A study of pedestrians found that although both genders opted for the shortest route, the women chose more complex routes than men. I know just with my family, in driving back and forth from Texas to Georgia, Mother would want to stop along the way and see things. Dad would be like, "No, let's just get there. Let's just get there." I can see where this is very true on many levels. This is the end of the human condition, part 1. Part 2 will be uploaded shortly. Thank you.